Spacebird Media.
Why do so many people find solace in the crackle of a vinyl record? Let's dive in. This isn't just another vinyl podcast. It's a journey into the heart of recovery through the universal language of music. Each week we share powerful stories of overcoming addiction and life's toughest challenges. Together, we'll uncover how the warmth of vinyl can guide us through moments of vulnerability and strength. So, drop the needle, lean in, and let the music heal. Let's get started.
This is Records in Recovery.
And welcome to Records and Recovery. Always exciting when we get a chance to talk about music, especially as it applies to our faith. How does that apply on a regular basis? Well, you just be transparent. You talk about the songs you love, the bands you love, and then also how God worked and orchestrated those, because He can use anything and everything to get our attention and to help us heal. So very excited to be a part of it. I'm Ace McKay. As a part of the Thesis Radio Network, we get a chance to have our inaugural episode with not only someone that you may have already heard, known, and maybe his music has touched you in some manner, but as a husband, father, now candle maker, aroma, whatever that is called. I don't even know what the official title is, but as a part of Zealand Worship and the Newsboys, bassist and singer, joining us for our very first episode to Records in Recovery. Welcome, Phil Joel. How's it going, man?
Great. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be the first guest. This is exciting.
It's been a hot minute. I didn't realize that you and the fam were now like store owners. What's going on in Franklin, Tennessee?
Yeah, we have a store in the town we live in, Franklin, and right on the main street. We just live down here too, so I can walk to work. And I just decided to give the touring thing a little bit of a break for half a second.
Yeah.
And it's been good. It's been nice.
So I guess let's catch up on what's going on musically, because obviously you were out of Newsboys, then you came back, and now you're making candles. So what's going on? Do we have some more Zealand Worship in the works, maybe?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. The last thing I did was during COVID. You know, I made a solo record. It's kind of like everyone did at the time. They found all the songs they wanted to record, and I headed out to my little studio behind the house and recorded an EP that I'm really proud of. It's cool. And I engineered it all myself and tried to, play everything and do it all by myself, which is kind of tough because I'm not real technical, but it was great. And so that's the latest thing I've done. I've done a few different projects and different songs for different projects. But the next thing I do will probably be another solo record. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you find it difficult to mix your own stuff? Because most of my friends as artists will say they give it to someone else.
I didn't mix the songs. I mean, I engineered, pushing the buttons and engineered and recorded everything. But I had people who know a whole lot more about mixing than I did do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's go back. So what was it that sparked you as a musician? Was it a band? Was it a show you went to? Like, there's so many sparks that can kind of ignite us. So what was that for you that said, man, I want to play music?
Girls, probably,
Yeah. Amen.
Let's be honest.
That's true.
Let's be honest. No, I'm an adopted kid, so when you're adopted, you're always looking for that thing that is quintessentially yours, and someone gave me a guitar and I fell in love with it. I was like, this fits, this makes sense to me. And so I started chasing it, and it, and quite, to be honest, to be truly transparent, it got me attention. It's like, oh wow, you doing, that's kind of cool. And I you're a pimply little kid that just wants some attention and wants to find their place in the world, and getting in, starting a band was a good way of doing that for me. But obviously I love music and enjoy doing it. It's not just about the attention anymore.
So who were those early influences for you?
Yeah, the early influences, In New Zealand, a lot of New Zealand bands, like Crowded House, Neil Finn, Dave Dobbin, some of these guys, Hoodoo Gurus, some of the Australian bands. So, you're in New Zealand, there's two little islands, and then there's Australia, and they have a whole bunch of great bands like Midnight Oil and
Yeah.
Hunters and Collectors and all of those, In Excess, of course. And then, further afield, you've got, what's going on in Europe, and of course, U2 were fantastic and always have been. And so they were an influence. But I grew up in the church. So I did have, through youth group, we had American kind of, CCM music make its way into our world. And so bands like Petra, who else? Undercover, Altar Boys, some of that stuff I really, really loved. Even Striper back in the day was kind of a thing. And I was like, yeah, they were doing something pretty radical. So there were a lot of influences, yeah.
Yeah, I will say Striper definitely tops the list for me because up until that point, so much of the contemporary Christian music was kind of very experimental, but Striper knew exactly like the timing and everything. Like they came out of the LA scene already doing the secular stuff. Totally. And then as their hearts were won, in favor of God, like that whole transformation, they were right at the thick of what was happening on mainstream radio. So for them to get not only the crossover success, but for people to latch onto them. And as a Baptist kid growing up, now Episcopalian, it's crazy to think about the rocker side of me in a Baptist church all my life going, man, the drums only come out on Christmas, and Easter, and so to be able to have something that I could identify with, I could sing the songs out, I could put the posters on my wall, and my mom, even though she still questioned when the shirts were open, I was like, look, Mom, Isaiah 53:5, and she's like, yeah, okay. But that identity of faith oftentimes comes from the bands, and I guess too, being a member of the Newsboys, a lot of people identified their faith with what you guys were doing.
Yeah. I think it's been a fun ride. I mean, and it's, we all have soundtracks, I think, for our lives, different songs, different stages and ages and different, key events and that'll trigger great memories and that kind of thing. And, it's definitely been fun to be a part of people's journeys, soundtracking their lives and their spiritual lives, especially, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to go back to you talking about being adopted as someone who also was that, identifying a heavenly father with an earthly, either absentee biological or, a somewhat now present stepfather, like how was that for you in your faith of trying to understand who God was to you?
Yeah. Well, quite honestly, I think my parents' faith was presented to me, via just being taken to Sunday school, taken to church, youth group and all that kind of thing. And I wanted to comply. I wanted to fit in. Yeah. I wanted to be a good kid, and so I think I grabbed a hold of my faith fairly early on, and it's gone through different phases. It's gone through different peaks and valleys. And it's become more my own than just the faith of my dad, who is a great man. He really is. He's a great guy. But his faith has as well, and he's been quite transparent about that. His different doubts at different points, and it's taken a different road. It's been but whether we've brought up with our biological dad or not, the understanding of the fact that we have a heavenly Father that loves us immensely more than any other being, any other person on the planet is vital to it's key to our existence. I think understanding that we're surrounded by the love of a Father that thinks we're great.
Yeah.
Whew, it's pretty dang handy, man.
I know, right? It's amazing.
It's just the truth, and it's not pie in the sky thinking. We can have all different sorts of doctrines and different theology, but at the end of the day, without understanding that the love of God and His Father heart for us, we're missing out. The only time I ever covered anybody else's song was "Good Good Father." I generally write the songs that I sing.
Yeah.
But Good Good Father is written by a friend of mine, and I thought this is just brilliant. And you know my version of it. You know,
Sure.
it's a little more.
Yeah.
It's a little more rocking. You know, I thought that sort of truth needed to be a little bit more exciting. You know.
Yeah. Well, and it becomes personal for you too, because you are seeing it through not only as growing up in a, adopted home, but then as now a dad, which you've been a dad for a while, but
Sure.
that lens, because for me, like having kids gave me the perspective that God has on me that I did not have before. And I believe that's why he makes us parents, so that we can identify what it's like to love someone unconditionally and to give them all the grace and compassion when you've told them a million times not to do something. And when they throw a temper tantrum, or whatever it is, we can identify with that. So it makes sense that would be a song that you would gravitate to for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
I love that.
I think I've learned more from my kids than they've learned from me, I think, at this point. I don't know.
That's right. I will say that one of my favorite visuals as a dad was when my oldest daughter, Lennon, she's probably just barely old enough to walk, and she finally got up some momentum one day, and I had just come in the house, and she just comes barreling around that corner, and I can hear her little baby feet just across the kitchen floor. And in that moment, God's saying, this is how you're supposed to come to me. And it's hung with me ever since. And that's, she's now 24 years old. And it's just every day, no matter what I'm going through, I just want to come barreling into his arms with excitement, because I'm excited to serve him and be loved by him and have him pick me up and swing me around and all of those things. It's a pretty cool perspective. Going back to Hills and Valleys, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about when you have been at your lowest and a song or a band or an album really stood out to help you through that time.
Interesting. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna throw it way back to when I was like a teenager. Did you ever listen to a band called the Altar Boys?
Oh, sure.
No way.
Yeah.
It's like I throw that one out there every now and then, and people are like, maybe I think I've heard of them, but.
So you have to understand, my brother and I, of course, this is pre-days of, contemporary Christian radio, which is everywhere now. At that time, the only way we could listen to contemporary Christian music was to go to the physical Christian bookstore in our area, and we would just pull stuff out based on a cool album cover. Like we didn't know names, we didn't know bands. So unless it was, a hearsay, like the first Petra album was, given to us by a friend, a youth pastor or someone, hey, you guys are going to love this. And they were right. Still one of my favorites. But going and just picking up an album and going, all right, am I going to like this? And whether it was a cassette that you had to queue up or drop the needle on vinyl record, like that was how we discovered. And my brother's like, hey, I don't like them, but you might like them. And then I would do the same thing to him. But Altar Boys was one of those that was in that vein, and like Res Band and, just all that stuff that was happening. There was this huge rock and roll scene in contemporary Christian music, but nowhere to get it unless you went looking for it.
Totally. That reminds me of maybe I should tell you this story instead, because when I was 14, I think I got in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
And got a little bit of trouble with the long arm of the law. And but the same weekend I went to a Luis Palau crusade.
All right.
And I went, and he gave the appeal. I went down the front, gave my life to the Lord, and went home and started looking at my records, and started thinking, I need to get rid of these,
Right.
I've gone back and since rebought all of them at least twice.
Same, bro. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I remember throwing away certain records, and then I went the next day. I went to the Christian bookstore in downtown in Auckland, and thumbing through some records, and I found this album with this guy on the cover, and I'm like, he looks pretty rock and roll.
Yep.
Okay, I'm in. And it was do you know Rick Kua?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So Rick Kua, and whom I know and I adore. He's a wonderful, lovely man. But at the time, I knew nothing about the music. I just like, okay, he looks rock and roll. I'm in, and took it home and spun it. Yeah, but Yeah, but records like that and the Altar Boys they were this really impassioned kind of band, and they were just kind of rough. And their biggest record was called Gut Level Music, and it just got me where I was. And I remember riding my like BMX bike,
Yeah.
with my headphones and my cassette Walkman, just cranking along and listening to the stuff and getting emotional and crying while I'm riding my bike because they're just singing about they just identified where I was and how I was feeling and led me into a response and how to respond to it. Because oftentimes we don't know how to respond to things, and how we're feeling. And that's what art is. I think it's artists, taking what they're feeling and doing and thinking, putting it into a form that we can, digest and re-express, through listening. So yeah, the Altar Boys, man, they were.
It's always
my
good.
Boys.
Do you have a song, whether it's Altar Boys or otherwise, that kind of lives rent-free in your head, that's kind of your go-to, like when like either you're just having one of those case of the Mondays or, the weekend was terrible or whatever? Is there that go-to, either you have to go listen to it or you just pop it out at any given moment?
In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. How about that?
Mm-hmm. Fantastic song.
Fantastic song, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what his face looks like, but to me, it just, it lays it out there, man.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's the perfect song.
But that brings up a great point that I think oftentimes needs to be repeated, because there's always, as Christians, how much secular music should we let come into our spirit? And again, there were times in my life where I was so closed off to what God was saying to me. He's using Beatle records and, AC/DC, any little something that would penetrate through to my stubbornness. And then as the walls and the layers came down, then I was receptive to actually hearing his voice, which, I'm very in tune with. I try to listen to the whispers in the midst of the chaos. But I love that you brought up Peter Gabriel in that perspective, because I believe once you have that filter of who you are in Christ, then every song goes through some kind of filter that it may not be the whole song. And again, not to overinterpret for artists who are by no means faith at all, but if it means something to you, then it's serving its purpose no matter what. But through the lens of what God is saying to us, we can definitely turn a song like that. Like for me, a song similar is Paul McCartney and Wings, Maybe I'm Amazed. Like the whole idea of the lyric of that song, to me, is 100% worship. Now, I know he's singing it to Linda, but at the same time, if I were to turn that song and use it in a worship setting, or if it's just me thinking about how God has blessed and loved me, it takes on any song takes on that persona based on where you are with God.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm a little more reluctant to call music secular or Christian.
Yeah.
I don't know if the music. Yeah, but I understand. I do understand what you're saying, and I've had and I've had plenty of moments where certain songs written by who knows what, people who may be in really dark places have ministered to my soul.
Sure.
And I'm in particular. I do remember one song. Eyes Wide Open, Snow Patrol.
Yeah.
Just driving along, just weeping, as the lyric is saying, tell me that you'll open your eyes. Basically, I'm hearing God saying, come on, you just, lift up your chin a little bit, look up, stop, get out of your despondency, get out of your self-pity, whatever it is, and lift up your head and look, because you can't see me if you're looking at your feet.
Sure.
And So music, man. Music's it's just fun, right?
I know.
The way it just messes with us.
When my wife and I got married and we, were living in the house together for the first time, she didn't realize how much music I listened to. And we got to the point, and we got married during the pandemic. So immediately she was like, hey, can we have some time where there's no music? Now, of course, in a day and age with earbuds and so forth, I can easily shift so that she's not distracted. But I don't think she realized how much of my DNA is 12 notes and a bunch of chords, right? And it's a nonstop. So from the minute my feet hit the floor, I've either already got a song in my head, or I'm grabbing earbuds and popping on a playlist that kind of motivates me, whether it's preparing my heart for Sunday morning worship or just, to get myself in a good frame of mind for the day. Like that to me, I don't, for people go, I don't really listen to music. I'm like, I can't relate to that at all. Like it just over my head.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Yep. I agree. It's, yeah. I've, recently someone asked me, what are you writing? Are you still writing songs? I said, yeah, I am. I'm writing. But I have no idea what I'm writing about right now.
Right.
I'm just letting it happen, and for no agenda. And it's kind of the most fun writing, actually.
Sure.
We'll see what comes.
Well, and as a songwriter myself, that's kind of me. Like there are days where like 4 or 5 might come out, or I'll get like one line and then I just marinate on it because I don't know what to do with it or anything. Or sometimes I might take it to my wife and then it, ignites a whole thing for her because that's where her heart is.
Cool.
So I love that about songwriting. What would you say to someone who, because I always tell people, hey, when you sing, you are basically praying twice. I think that's a famous quote. I can't remember who said it, but I've heard it numerous times. But to let yourself be in a state of worship through song, worship is not a genre of music. It is a lifestyle. But when we allow our hearts to, whether we're writing something or we're singing someone else's song who is saying what we've been trying to say to God, what do you say to someone who is trying to express themselves to God but just doesn't either feel worthy or doesn't feel like that he's listening? What do you say to them?
I don't feel worthy if he's listening. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I can answer it exactly. How do I approach that? The bottom line is you are worthy.
Amen.
He's made you worthy. He created you. I'm definitely a Psalm 139 kind of guy. We're fearfully, wonderfully made. God knows exactly who we are.
Yeah.
He's into us. He thinks we're his favorite thing.
Yeah.
And we're his favorite thing, and he wants us to be, he wants to be our favorite thing. And yeah, and I guess that, sometimes that just takes time to figure that out, and let's be honest, some days we feel that, some days we just know it.
Yeah.
And, other days it's an absolute ecstatic combination of the two, it's head and heart knowledge, and there's nothing better. But cutting yourself some slack, I think is important too, because it's not a perfect science, is it? We're walking around and wrapped in these mortal coils, facing all kinds of issues every day. And we have so many voices. I think one of the biggest things that we have coming that oppose us and oppose the idea of intimacy with God, of being close, is these devices that we have, attached to our bodies, basically 24/7. We wake up, we look, we scroll, we hear, we listen to everybody else first before we stop and be still. And that's pretty clear, isn't it? God's given us that clear instruction: be still and know that I'm God. So, maybe worship is more about being quiet than making noise.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a lyric within itself, my friend.
Yeah. It'll be a quiet song, that one.
That's right.
Maybe the gap between the tracks.
It'll either be the shortest or the longest song you ever wrote, right?
Right.
So as a dad, I want to ask you, because I know how it is in my house and has been, how has music played that connecting point with you and the kiddos?
Yeah. Well, they haven't been able to avoid it. They've grown up around it. They've grown up, being on the road with me. At a certain point with Newsboys World, I decided, I can't be away from them this long, this often. I want to be very present in their lives. Otherwise, I'm going to lose their hearts. Their hearts and their allegiance is going to go off somewhere else. And I want to hang on to it as long as I can.
Amen.
So I can speak into their lives and be a part of things. So putting and building a studio in the backyard was kind of fun, so that they could be a part of my recording process and that sort of thing. And now my son is doing music. That's his world. He has his first song coming out the end of this month.
All right.
which is very exciting. Yeah, he has a deal with Capitol, and he's kind of making that happen. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, music's like your house. It's just always been a part of what we do. It's always been going on, and it's always on in the background there. It's always something new. It's, even today, my kids will be send me songs. Hey, check this out, Dad. What do you think of this?
Yeah.
So it pulls us in together. It's different. Music used to be a divider in families because, your dad would be too old-fashioned to understand what you're listening to, and his bands were old and boring, or what he listened to, and yours is new and fresh.
Yep.
And now they're discovering everything we listened to 30, 40 years ago,
Right.
Whatever it is. And they're introducing us to new things, and it's actually a uniting force.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a uniting force,
Yeah.
And I'm not so busy about deciding, is it secular, is it Christian, is it this and that. I'm just listening to it on the merits of what it is musically, lyrically, how it melodically, all these types of things, and allowing it to sort of pull us together as maybe be a bit of a bonding agent in our relationship. It's I think I know what I'm talking about. It's fun
sure.
when your kids introduce you to new music.
Yeah. Well, I always like it when we go to like a Marvel movie or something and they've incorporated, Zeppelin or something into the soundtrack, and then they're like, I got to get that soundtrack. And then I go home and I'm like, well, here's the albums they pulled it from. And they're like, no way. So that's always cool.
Right.
Phil, before I let you go, man, I just want to hear your heart on what you love about where you are with God right now.
Ooh, that's nice. I appreciate that question. Yeah. I just sort of got on a little soapbox maybe about the noise and the voices and that kind of thing. And for the last couple of years, I've backed away from the hustle and the bustle of being whether I like it or not, I've been a professional Christian. You are too, Ace. You're like a professional Christian. It's your job, And so we started this different business. It's called The Green Room. It's in our little town of Franklin, and it's all eco-friendly, creation care type products, and we, like I said, we make candles and room spray and cologne, and we have a skincare range and all this sort of stuff. So when you called a little while ago, I was wrestling basically 100 pounds of wax, navigating and negotiating them into little jars with wicks to make candles. And so here I am just doing this, and it's just still, and it's quiet, and it's just me and the wax and me and the Lord in the midst of it. And to me, it's been worship. It's been a new form of worship, and not to say music isn't still there,
Sure.
So I've really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed not being on the platform, not being on stage, not being in front of people, just backing away, being still, working with my hands, and just enjoying the stillness and the beauty of God and His creation, and making stuff. So I don't know if that's kind of a boring, simple,
not at all,
answer for you, but that's what's getting my heart right now. Just making candles.
That's fantastic. I love it. Well, Phil Joel has been our guest. And of course, man, I always love when we get a chance to connect. Please tell everyone in the fam that I said hi, and you're welcome to come. And I'm definitely going to do a road trip because my wife is a candle lover. So we got to make that happen for sure.
Love it. Well, thanks for having me. When I saw your text the other day on my phone, I got very excited. I said, Ace McKay's texting me, and she was very excited. So she says hi back.
Yeah, thank you for answering. And of course, thanks again for anyone that is checking us out. This is our first episode, one of many, but of course, a part of the Thesis Radio Network. And as you continue to find vinyl and music and songs, you can email me, ace@thesis.com, and let us know exactly the songs that are affecting you and impacting you through your dark season. So let God define who you are, and we'll see you next time on Records and Recovery.
Records and Recovery is a Spacebird Media production and a part of the Thesis Radio Network. Find more episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts or at thesis.com.